I remember the very first time that I heard the two words moral injury. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. It was Dr. Dave right here on Learn From People Who Lived It a couple of years ago. We were doing a Reserved for Vets special series with him and Chad McLean from Mental Joe, and the two words moral injury came up. And I thought, this is the message that every single veteran who's seen some crazy shit in combat needs to hear. This is the episode that everybody on the front lines in terms of first responders needs to hear. And so that's why I've chosen to dig out this particular piece of our conversation, which was about an hour long, and give it to you in this very quick tip type kind of a format. So here you go. This is a conversation with me, Matt McDonald, and Dr. Dave, where we are getting into what is moral injury and why does it matter so much?
Okay, so moral injury was one of the core components that I learned. And subsequently down the road, then I learned about developmental trauma. And at this point, our fourth full year in, our program focuses on developmental trauma, complex PTS and moral injury, and relational sabotage.
I just want to pause for a second because you've mentioned a couple things, developmental trauma and moral injury. And Dave and I actually about 2.5 years ago did almost a 2 or 3 part podcast series on moral injury, because it is one of those things, especially for the military community, that may be one of the biggest things that folks have to deal with. And so, Dave, would you mind giving us your Cliff's Notes on moral injury? And then we'll pick back up and get into what happens at the retreat. But this is such a critical element for so many people.
What I've found over the years is that moral injury is what keeps people stuck, right? So if you experience a trauma and you're having trouble sleeping, we can help you get your sleep regulated. If you're having anxiety going into crowded places, we can help you with anxiety going into crowded places. You know, do some breathing exercises, some self-awareness and things like that. But the moral injury piece of it, you know, and just for the audience to understand, moral injury is seeing or experiencing something that goes against deeply held personal moral beliefs, right? You witness something terrible happening to somebody else. You are put in a position where you have to make a decision that goes against your moral values, and you do it, and you're stuck with the negative feelings and kind of wondering, like, what does that make me now? And so now that I've seen this, now that I've participated in this, what does that make me? And then trying to reconcile that afterwards. What I find is that instead of fully engaging in treatment, people become shut down. They don't want to talk about things. There's a great amount of shame and guilt that's involved that keeps people stuck. And trying to work through that, there definitely needs to be a portion of forgiveness. And that's, you know, a whole other process to work through. But working through the moral injury part of it, when you don't do that, it keeps people stuck. And I've seen people stuck for decades. You know, they're in treatment, they're getting medications, maybe for depression, but they're just really not progressing or improving. And it's usually the moral injury piece, when you get down to it, when you get somebody to open up and talk about it, that's what's keeping them stuck.
Matthew, I want to ask you, when you're in your retreats with folks and during those 4 days, I'm going to guess that just like me, there is a first time that people have heard about something even called a moral injury. And I'll bet as soon as you articulate that to folks, it lands with them like 1,000 pounds. They go, oh my God, that is what I am dealing with. That is what I am struggling with. So 2-part question here. How many times do you witness that in your program where somebody goes, oh my Lord, for the first time somebody has seen me and understands what I'm dealing with? And then how are you, or what advice do you give them to deal with the moral injury? So tackle the first part, if you don't mind first, Matthew.
Every single camp.
Really?
Every single camp. And I would argue almost every single person. Almost every single person. You know, and I can only speak for vets. I can't really speak for first responders, but from the conversations I've had with them, it's relatively the same. We're all just kind of told we have PTSD. especially from a DSM diagnosis, right? There's no diagnoses for moral injury yet. We're all just kind of told we have it. And, you know, you look at the statistics, we've had men as old as 76 in our program, and these guys went through Vietnam and some other stuff, and they've been sitting on that. And yeah, well, there's probably PTSD episodes there and components. A lot of that I can only imagine is moral injury. Having to kill, having to watch, you know, the innocents getting killed, things like that, going against your long held beliefs, acts of omission, acts of commission. And then you come home and it quiets, and it's not my leg is missing or I have a concussion. It's, I think I'm a monster. And how do you sleep with that? How do you sit with that? Right. And the rumination and the doubt and the guilt, that's what eats at you on a daily basis. And that's what inevitably, I believe, puts the gun in most people's mouth.
Please share this episode with somebody that you know needs to hear it. And we will see you next time on an all new Learn from People Who Lived It. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. And don't forget, you can visit us online at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com.